Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Shift with Gina. This podcast is an accompaniment to my women's health and wellness group called The Shift, which is hosted on Mighty Networks. You can click the link in the description to join. You do have to be a woman. Sorry, guys. We do live workouts every Monday, live streams every Thursday, usually about health and wellness topics. I'm always doing exclusive content there about cultural topics that are related to women. So it's just a really good place to get daily health tips, do health challenges. A lot of women are on a weight loss regimen. Some are just trying to eat healthier and feel better and be more vibrant for their family. So it's a good place for anyone who wants to be healthier and learn more about health and wellness and talk more about women's issues in society today, because there's a lot going on. Today, I first want to talk about something that's just, it's a little ridiculous, but it's very insidious and disturbing. So there's kind of some viral content that's been going around where an author has, I think she started a podcast and she was also interviewed about this topic of how having an affair as a woman is an act of self-care. Yes. So that's a thing now. Women feminists actually believe that cheating on your husband can be an act of empowerment for women and can be even more an act of self-care. So there's this author named Jo Piazza. I actually think I read one of her books, one of her early books, because if I remember correctly, she got married in the first year of marriage. She got really sick with some kind of chronic illness or autoimmune disease. And it was a story about how the first year of marriage was very tumultuous. And from what I remember, it was actually quite a good story. But she writes a lot about marriage. And she started this podcast with iHeartRadio called She Wants More. That's the name of the podcast. And of course, that's the name of the podcast because women feminists always just want more. They just want everything with no consequences for any of their actions. And She Wants More explores female infidelity through narrative storytelling and research in a way you've never heard before. It's also really effing juicy. Female affairs are massively stigmatized and judged, while male infidelity is often seen as commonplace and just a part of a midlife crisis or something that happened at a buddy's Vegas bachelor party. No matter your opinion on infidelity, it's important for us to listen to all women's stories without judgment and bias, because that's the only way we can truly see the full experience of being a woman in the world. End quote. So apparently the only way that we can fully experience being a woman in the world is listening to other women cheat on their husbands without judgment. See, this is the whole thing about feminism, right? Is that they say it's about equality and equity and taking back power that has been previously seized by the patriarchy. But what feminism really is at the end of the day is just an excuse to do whatever the hell they want with zero consequences. That's what it is. They want special treatment. They want special exceptions, and they don't want any of the consequences that come with their actions. Now, I find it very interesting that they're calling infidelity self-care. It's an act of self-care. So I often rage online against this culture of self-care. I think the self-care industry and the self-care verticals and all these media sites is just asinine. Just like I think the whole culture's obsession with self-love is not only useless, it's unproductive, it's also harmful to women. So what does self-care mean today? Self-care has just become a catch-all term for women to do things that make them feel good in the present moment. Temporary things that are going to help them feel good right here and right now, regardless of what the consequences are. So self-care can include anything from taking a long bubble bath to staying in on Friday night instead of going to your friend's birthday party, to eating a tub of ice cream in bed because you had a really stressful week, to ordering pizza and eating all of it by yourself because you're really stressed out and your boyfriend broke up with you. Like, self-care just means nothing now. It just means that women get to be lazy and gluttonous and slothful, and they get to package it all up in this little fake bow of compassion and self-love, because it's all about taking care of yourself. First of all, nobody needs to be taught self-love. We come out of the womb selfish. That's how human beings are designed. We are made to be the most selfish, conscious beings that are on earth. We're incredibly, incredibly selfish. That's how we are designed. That's why we need God. That's why we are spiritual beings that need something bigger than ourselves to help us wade through our own deep selfishness. The self is a bottomless pit that will never satisfy you. So when we hear all of this obsession about self-care and self-love and self-confidence and self, it's no wonder why mental health issues are on the rise in this country. More people than ever are depressed and anxious and sad and lonely. It's because they have been fed this incredible lie by mainstream society, by media, by Hollywood, by politicians, by academia. They've been fed this lie to focus on yourself. You're the most important thing in the world. You have to focus on yourself. And so when you do obsess over yourself, you realize that the self is a bottomless pit that will never, ever satisfy you. And like I said, we come out of the womb selfish already. Nobody needs to be taught selfishness. I know some people will respond and say, well, what about the busy mom that puts everybody before herself and she's tired, she doesn't have time to work out. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of yourself, but what true self-care is, eating a healthy diet, drinking enough water, moving the body often, having good hygiene. This is not self-care. This is basic adulthood. That's just like basic self-respect. That is basic taking care of your body. If you need a manual and a handbook on how to properly take care of your adult body, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. This is not self-care. This is not self-love. It's just basic 101, just basic how to live 101, how to respect your body. And that's why I can't stand this self-care movement. And I think it's really destructive to women, even more than being annoying and just being a way for companies to make more money and earn more revenue. It's destructive to women because these women are convinced that there's nobody more important in the world than themselves. And it's deeply connected to the rates of single childless women because they've been convinced that nothing on the planet is more important than their ability to travel at any time and just go somewhere and have new experiences, to grow and have self-growth and learn about myself. They've been convinced that nothing is more important than waking up at whatever time they want to wake up and going out whenever they want and drinking wine and cocktails until 2 a.m. and going shopping and spending money on themselves. This is what the self-care industry has taught women, and it ties right into feminism. Self-care came from feminism. It came from this idea that you have been oppressed for so long, that society has demanded things from you that you shouldn't be giving to them, and that the patriarchy has been suppressing you and your true desires. So you need to focus on yourself, girl. Treat yourself. So obviously I want everyone to take care of themselves. I have a women's group where we talk about health and wellness, but we don't talk about self-care in the way that it has been modernized today. We talk about the basic ways to care for the body that you have been given as a gift from God. Just basic ways to be an adult. So I'm really against this whole self-care thing. And it's interesting that the talk of infidelity and cheating is directly tied to self-care. Right? Because like I said, self-care has just turned into a catch-all phrase that just means I get to do whatever I want without consequences. And notice here, I'm going to read you a little bit more from this idea that infidelity is a form of self-care. And you'll see that the root of this is actually Marxism. And I know it doesn't make sense right now. You're going to ask me, well, how could that possibly be related to Marxism? But you'll see in a minute how infidelity and women's sexuality is placed through the lens of oppressor versus oppressed. That's like the simplest way to describe Marxism. I don't know if you guys saw, I forgot. Oh, her name is Bethany Mandel. She kind of went viral a couple weeks, maybe a couple months ago, because she was doing some sort of interview and the host asked her to define woke and she couldn't. And she stumbled over her words and all the libs were making fun of her. Well, woke is just another word, really a modern term for Marxism, because everything that is considered to be woke is everything that's considered to be Marxist. And it's always looked through the lens of oppressor versus oppressed. So you'll see here that when this author and some of these women are talking about infidelity, they are talking about it as through a Marxist lens. So I'm going to show you part of this interview with this author, Joe Piazza. And this is a Bustle interview. So the interviewer says, is it pushing it too far to say that having an affair can be self-care? And she says, no, not at all. We literally have a whole episode on whether or not having an affair is the new goop. We talk to women who say it is. This is what they do for themselves. They don't get a massage. They don't do yoga. They have an affair. This is real, guys. Okay, for those of you who are just listening and not watching the video, like I'm reading this word for word. Okay, so she is comparing getting a massage to having sex with a man who is not your husband. Let's continue. She says, but also these women tell us they take better care of themselves because they're having an affair. They're with someone who finally sees them again or sees them differently than their spouse does. So they're shaving their legs, they're working out more, they're taking care of their bodies in ways they wouldn't have otherwise. Okay, so now let's go down a little bit. And she says here, women are craving autonomy over their own bodies. We're seeing it be restricted by our government. A lot of the women that I interviewed said that after they started having kids, their body didn't belong to them. It was always someone else's, their husband's, their children's. They were growing a child. They were feeding a child. They were caring for a child. There's so much physicality involved in that. They wanted their body to just be their own. And then she blames the pandemic. The pandemic definitely escalated that because people were in such close quarters with their spouses, with their families. Women wanted something just for themselves again. Okay, and then you see here that she's upset because men were allowed to have affairs for all of history. So she says, I don't think the stigma exists for men. It's like, oh, he's having a midlife crisis. He's just having sex with a younger woman now. In so many movies, we have a guy going out with his buddies and he's just like, yeah, I slept with a stripper in Vegas. It's so ordinary. And yet anytime we see women doing that, it's a GD scandal. The world effing ends. Oh my gosh. This is wild, you guys. So there's a lot to unpack here. So first, let's start with this, going back to this idea of how this is actually Marxist. So this woman is claiming that because women have been oppressed by, number one, the patriarchy, and number two, by their families. My body doesn't belong to me. My body's my husband. My body's my children. I'm so oppressed because I spent 9 months growing a child and then breastfeeding the child. So they're a victim already. Bam, you're a victim. So because you are a victim of the patriarchy and your family, you have a right to have sex with a man who is not your husband. This is what they're saying here. And because men have been cheating on women for all of human history, it's so unfair. It's time that we get to have sex with other guys too who aren't our husband. We get to be unfaithful too because we've been oppressed. You see how Marxist this is? But that's because feminism at its roots is Marxist. So that's how you end up with this ridiculous notion that cheating on your husband is suddenly some kind of self-empowering act. And notice how they make it sound like a woman, when she has an affair, it's a positive thing because she finally starts taking care of herself again because somebody notices her. Someone notices her. And so this right here is the sick, twisted, misogynistic roots of feminism that say a woman's value comes from when other men notice her. A woman's value comes from showing her naked body, from being desired, from being wanted. That is so misogynistic. I tweeted the other day that, like we talked about in the last episode, that the rates of women who have had more than 10 sexual partners before marriage has doubled in the last 30 years. And I said our misogynistic culture has convinced women that this is okay and that having sex with random people is empowering. People took that to mean I was blaming men because they hear misogynistic and they just think men. No, I believe very strongly that feminism is misogynistic. Feminism convinces women that it's empowering to show your naked body to strangers online, that it's empowering to show your nipples, to not wear a bra, to sell your body to strangers on OnlyFans, to have multiple sexual partners at once, to cheat on your husband. Like, these are all misogynistic things. You're telling women to objectify themselves. Like, why is it that the worst things that women are sold in our society today, it doesn't come from men? We're not told by men to cheat on our husbands. We're not told by men to be morbidly obese and be fat positive. We're not told by men to get on OnlyFans and sell our bodies. Like, yeah, sure, they purchase the content, but they're not encouraging women to get on there. It's the women. It's the feminists. Nobody wants to see women destroyed more than other women do. That's why I always say feminism is misogyny. Like, what the feminist movement has become today is a level of misogyny that we have never seen before. Definitely haven't seen it from the patriarchy. I mean, these women are convincing other women to cheat on their husbands because it's going to make them feel good about themselves. You're going to shave your legs again because some random guy noticed you. Like, is your self-worth really that low? And this is what really upsets me. Like, as a wife and as a mom, like, I only have one child, but I know how difficult pregnancy can be, and birth and breastfeeding. Like, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Your body goes through some enormous changes, some significant hormonal changes. The shape of your body changes when you're pregnant and then not. And then breastfeeding is a real, it can be very tiring and a lot happens. But first of all, if you're healthy and if you have a good baseline of health, pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding should not take so much of a toll on you that you hate your body and that you hate your family for putting you through this misery. Like, pregnancy, birth, and breastfeeding, just because they may be difficult at times doesn't mean they should be miserable. It shouldn't be physically miserable for you. If it is, you likely have some health issues that you're not addressing. And second of all, okay, you grew a child and you fed a child and you cared for a child. You think that because that was physical, you think you have a right to cheat on your husband? I can't with these women. I just cannot even believe we're entertaining this. And have you noticed that I said this in the last couple episodes for a lot of different things? Not only have we been demanded to accept degenerate behavior, we're now being demanded to praise it and flip the script and call it good. For example, porn, OnlyFans. Not only have we been told to accept it, we've been told that it's empowering. It's good for women. It's a good way to make money, good way to be independent, good way to show your self-worth and self-confidence. Morbid obesity. The fat acceptance movement has moved away from just stop making fun of us and accept us as who we are. It's moved from that to we are beautiful and you must give us a free seat on an airplane. And you now have the covers of magazines that say this is healthy with a morbidly obese person on the cover. And now cheating and infidelity, which has always been recognized as something that's wrong and immoral for all of human history. Yes, even when men did it. Just because men get to do something doesn't mean that you get to do something. This is the root of feminism. They see something that men get to do and they're like, that's not fair. I want to do that. That's so not fair. I want to do that. I want to be a CEO. I want to make $1 million a year. You don't want to go work dangerous jobs. You don't want to put in the hours that it takes to be a CEO. You don't want to have the same rates of homelessness and drug abuse and suicide that men do. Women aren't interested in any of that. They cherry pick some of the things that men get to do and they just want to do it for themselves. Just because men do it, you think it's okay for you to do that? So they see something like infidelity, which has always been wrong. And not only do they want it to be accepted, but they now want to twist it and say that it's good for women. So you see what's happening here? I mean, this is why I'm not joking when we say we live in the upside down. We're constantly being told to flip the script entirely and tell each other that bad things are actually good for you. That right is wrong and wrong is right and up and down is down and down is up. That's what we're being told with this. And it's disgusting. I'm telling you, nobody hates women more than women do. Like, why are these women trying to convince each other to be sluts? Like, that's a terrible, horrible sin to cheat on your husband and just expect him to sit around and be okay with it. No, it's not right for a husband to cheat on a woman either. Of course it's not. But you don't see men creating this idiotic content. You don't see GQ or Men's Health or any of these, or Esquire, any of these men's magazines putting out content saying, hey, dude, screwing another woman who's not your wife is self-care. You don't see men doing this. You don't see men encouraging other dudes to, yeah, go have sex with another girl because it's going to make you feel strong, bro. It's going to make you feel more masculine. No, you don't see that. I don't see any mainstream media machines putting out this kind of content for men. It's only women, and only women are stupid enough to fall for. Only women are dumb enough to fall for fat positivity and thinking that porn and selling your body online is empowering. Only women are stupid enough to believe that cheating on your husband is somehow an act of self-care and self-love. Man, you read some of this stuff and you kind of understand why people hate women. Like, why is it that the most degenerate acts are always being sold to women as empowerment? Like I said, nobody hates women more than women do. It's just like, it's crazy. Okay, so look, let's wrap that up. Let's move into something else. The last topic we'll talk about today is the rates of infertility. Apparently they're on the rise, which I don't think is very surprising to anyone. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in every 6 people around the world are affected by infertility. Now, this statistic has actually changed. It was only in the beginning of this month, in April, that this statistic was changed. It used to be 1 in every 8 people around the world were estimated to experience infertility. And now that statistic has changed to 1 in every 6 worldwide. Like I said, this is from the World Health Organization. So, who knows how accurate these numbers are, but I think it gives us a good enough idea of how infertility has been on the rise. And it's also accompanied by the rise of things like IVF and surrogacy, things like that are going to supposedly help women increase the chances of having children. So what's really going on here? Are we seeing increased rates of infertility? I think, yes, absolutely. The modern lifestyle has caused infertility in ways that we've never seen before in women, men too, but particularly women for a couple of reasons. Number one, because of the birth control pill. So hormonal birth control has resulted in infertility in a lot more women than we realize. And of course, there's no equivalent to men. So at the same time, we are seeing rates of testosterone significantly decline in men, which of course affects their fertility. So men are certainly affected by infertility as well, but women even more so, because the trappings of a woman's modern lifestyle are a little bit different than a man's. Like I said, a huge part of that comes down to the birth control pill. So medical doctors will tell you that the birth control pill does not affect fertility at all. They will gaslight their patients. They will tell women that there's absolutely no connection. And the reason that you think you're struggling with infertility is because, well, you were 25-year-old when you went on the pill, and then you got off the pill when you were 31 years old. And your possibility of getting pregnant between 25 and 31 just naturally declines. So that's why you can't actually have a baby when you're 31 after being on the pill for 6 years, not because of the birth control pill. Oh, and also there's no peer-reviewed studies showing that the pill affects fertility. Of course there isn't. Who do you think pays for the studies? Do you think Big Pharma is going to allow a massive peer-reviewed study to show the devastating rates of infertility that are caused by the birth control pill? I don't care if you call me a conspiracy theorist. Like, this is one of those things that more women are talking about over and over and over again. And a lot of it is coming from anecdotal experience, because right now we don't have studies. We don't have a lot of research to show this. But I guarantee you in the next 5 to 10 or maybe even more years, we're going to see plenty of research. Mark my words, like, this is going to age well. Because so one of the things that I did for Evie's last print magazine is I surveyed over 1,000 women who have taken the birth control pill. And I asked them a lot of questions about fertility, about their menstrual cycle, about how long it took for them to get back to ovulating after the pill. And you'd be shocked at how many of these women know in their bones that they are infertile because of being on the birth control pill for so long. Their doctors gaslight them. So why does the birth control pill cause infertility? There's a lot of different speculations as to why this is the case. First of all, it's important for you to know, you may know this, but if you don't, very important information. When you're on the birth control pill, you don't get pregnant because you don't ovulate. So the pill shuts down connection between your brain and your ovaries. So you just don't ovulate. And if you don't ovulate, you can't release an egg and get pregnant. So when your body does not ovulate, that has very significant effects on your hormonal cycle, on your menstrual cycle, on the way that your entire body functions. Because there are some very important rises and falls of certain hormones like estrogen and progesterone that happen when you're naturally ovulating. So when you're on the pill overrides your natural hormonal cycle and gives you an artificial plethora of synthetic hormones that take over. So if you, I don't have the charts up right now, but you can go to my women's health group. We've shown these charts before where it shows a woman's natural hormonal dips and rises of things like estrogen and progesterone when you're not on the pill. And then when you're on the pill, all of that goes away. And it's just the same exact hormonal rises and falls every single day. And it's from synthetic hormones. So obviously, if you don't ovulate for 6 years, let's just say you're on the pill for 6 years. And I know a lot of women, thousands of women are on the pill for much longer than that, because what's becoming much more common now is women are being prescribed the pill when they're like 15 years old. And there's some studies showing that when you put a teenager on the birth control pill before she has had time to fully mature and fully get used to her own natural hormonal cycles, that has an even more significantly devastating effect on her menstrual cycle and her fertility in the future. I mean, that's kind of common sense. You know, if you mess with a woman's hormones before her hormones have fully reached equilibrium, of course it's going to be terrible effects for the rest of her life. So when you're on the pill for several years, even just a few years, you never ovulate. So imagine being on the pill for 12 years. You're on the pill from 19 to 31 years old. That's 12 years of never ovulating. And you know what else that is? 12 years of never having a menstrual period, never having menstruation. And women are like, no, I had a period. I bleed when I stop taking the pills and take the placebo. Okay, you bleed, but that's not a period. That's a withdrawal bleed from the hormones that you stop taking in those pills. And the lining of your uterus does not naturally thicken, which is what happens when you aren't on the pill and you have a normal hormonal cycle. And that thickening of the uterus lining is what allows you to bleed naturally. And the thickening of your uterus lining is also what helps you prepare for pregnancy and prepare for a baby to naturally and healthily grow in your uterus. So a woman who is on the pill for 12 years, imagine how difficult it is for your body to quickly just snap back and learn how to ovulate. So you're 31, you took the pill for 12 years because your doctor told you there's no side effects other than maybe some weight gain and maybe some mood swings, but that's about it, honey. You know, that's it. Not to mention the severe effect it has on your gut. It totally wrecks your gut lining, which causes a lot of mental health issues that nobody's talking about, but that's another topic. We could talk about that another time. So you just don't ovulate for 12 years. You stop taking the pill. A lot of times, this is a common story I hear. A woman gets married and she's on the pill when she meets her husband. And then when she gets married, she decides to get off the pill because maybe they want to start trying for a baby. And then she realizes that she's just not ovulating because she hasn't ovulated in like 5 to 10 years. This is not necessarily this is definitely not every single woman who has been on the pill. You know, I also know women who have been able to pretty quickly get back on their ovulation cycle, but it's not the case for everyone. And this is not something that conventional medical doctors tell their patients. 9 times out of 10, it's not because they don't want to tell you. It's because they don't know this. They were not even taught this. Like in conventional medical schools, and most of them, you know what they're taught? They're taught that a woman can get pregnant any day she's not menstruating. Like I've had 3 people who are currently in medical school message me on Instagram when I talk about these topics. And they're like, I hate to tell you this, but I just took a class in medical school. In medical school, they're getting their MD and they're taught that the only time a woman can get pregnant is when she's not on her period. It's wild stuff. So the birth control pill is absolutely contributing to infertility. And then there's also a piece that nobody's really talking about. Obviously, we know the lifestyle pieces, like women aren't eating well. They're eating a diet that's very high in processed foods, hyper palatable foods that are addictive and very, very low in nutrients. But, and also women are not moving and exercising enough. We live very sedentary lifestyles and we're lazy and we're addicted to screens, and all these things affect our hormones. But one thing that most people don't talk about enough is the toxins that we consume in our daily life. These endocrine disruptors, you probably heard about this before. Endocrine disruptors have a significant effect on our hormones, which can obviously affect your fertility. So a lot of women who want to get healthy, they do the baseline things like start to eat better and move the body more. But we have to be really conscious about what kind of hair products, what kind of skincare products and makeup products are we using? What kind of clothes are we wearing? A lot of the traditional workout clothes, like Lululemon, for example, like their pants and leggings and shirts are made with really toxic material. And when women wear those leggings to work out, they don't wear underwear. So it's right on your private parts and your skin absorbs a lot. And we even have to think about the cleaning products we're using, the dish detergent, the dishwasher detergent, what kind of sprays are around the house, fragrances. All of these things are endocrine disruptors that, you can laugh off and be like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal, but they have an effect on your endocrine system, which produces your hormones. And so this is about so much more than just eating well and moving the body. Our modern lifestyle is unfortunately full of a lot of toxins and endocrine disruptors, and some of them you really can't help. Another big one is drinking water. What kind of water do you drink? Do you drink tap water? Stop that. Don't do that anymore. I just shared alternatives in my women's group about what kind of water to drink. Do not drink bottled water. Don't drink anything out of plastic, and don't drink tap water. You got to drink filtered water. This has an effect on your hormones. Unfortunately, like I said, there's a lot of disruptors in our modern lifestyle that affect our hormones and our fertility. And you can't get rid of all of them, but you can get rid of a lot of them. There's a lot of things that you can control. And then there's some things that you can't. For example, like taking a walk in certain areas, like they spray Roundup on all the plants. And sometimes you can't help but inhale that. But there's a lot of things that you can do at home in your life that can reduce the amount of toxins that you're consuming every single day. And that has an effect on your fertility. I think it's so sad that so many women are struggling with infertility. I saw another statistic recently that says nearly 40% of women above the age of 35 would have tried to get pregnant sooner if they knew about the age-related decline in fertility. So what that means is almost 40% of women above the age of 35 did not fully understand how much your age affects your fertility. And they said they would have tried to get pregnant sooner if they knew just how much your age affects your fertility. So I think that's another thing too, because society and feminism sells a lie to women that says you can wait. You don't need kids right away. Having kids in your 20s is a dumb idea. Wait, accomplish something first. Your career is more important, right? Accomplish something. Be independent first. You don't need to pop out babies and be slaves to your kids. Just be Chelsea Handler forever. And then they realize they're 32, 33, 34. The biological clock is ticking, and they feel this real pull to be a mommy that they maybe didn't feel before. And then they realize that it might be a little bit too late. And they've lived this very modern lifestyle, a lot of alcohol, toxins, bad diet, treating the body poorly, all of that put together. And then they realize they really struggle with fertility. So I think it's a really sad thing. So many of these women said they would have tried to get pregnant sooner if they really knew how much age affects fertility. And it does, but that doesn't mean that you can't have babies in your 30s or even early 40s. You just have to take care of your body, and you have to treat your body right. I mean, I think so much of this, I've said many times in live streams on my women's group. I've said it in a couple of videos here. I think the biggest thing that we're dealing with right now in our country is a spiritual sickness. Women are looking for validation in all the wrong places. They're looking for validation in other men, the way that other men see them. They're looking for validation in their professional accomplishments. And they're looking for validation even in their self-care, self-love, self-confidence. It's a sickness. And it all comes down to a spiritual hole that we all have in our hearts. We're all religious beings. And my heart goes out to so many of these women that are looking in all the wrong places for validation and for meaning. And the number one place that we find meaning is through God, is through Jesus Christ. You probably know by now, I talk about things from a Christian perspective. And that's the number one problem with our society today, is that we have a spiritual sickness that people have been convinced that our sense of meaning comes from someplace else that's not God. And that's why we're so empty. And that's why you find all of these ways to try to fill the emptiness, but it just doesn't work. So if you want to hear some more, I'm going to be doing some more exclusive content on fertility in my women's group. I don't want you to despair if you're a woman who is trying to get pregnant, or you've been struggling with fertility or struggling with health in general. I don't want you to despair. The good news is that our bodies are incredible systems that God perfectly designed, and that when we give our bodies the right tools, they can heal themselves. God can heal us if we just give our body the right input. So if you're struggling with fertility, or maybe you have a little weight gain, whatever it is, join my group. We have a really good group of women there who are invested in themselves and invested in their health, because it's about so much more than us. We should be healthy so that we can give to our loved ones, so that we can give to our family. If we have children, so we can give to our children. And even bigger than that, so we can give back to our communities and to our society. So click the link in my bio if you are a woman. If you're a guy, share this with a woman who you think would enjoy the shift. All ages, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s. So click the link in my bio to join us. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.